A wood exists that dulls a chainsaw chain in a single cut. Fence posts made from it have been standing in bare ground for over a century with no treatment, no preservative, no coating. It burns hotter than any tree in North America, approaching the energy density of coal. Indigenous nations traded a single bow carved from it for a horse. Frank Miller here with Heritage Garden Wisdom, and by 1869, 60,000 miles of living fence built from this tree lined the American Midwest. Then the steel industry came. They ripped it out, passed laws demanding its removal, and sold you something worse. The wood is Maclura pomifera, commonly called Osage orange or hedge apple. In 1910, the United States Department of Agriculture opened the Forest Products Laboratory and tested every commercially important wood species in America. When they tested Osage orange, what they measured should not have been possible from a single tree. Untreated fence posts lasted 50 years in bare ground. Hardness registered at 2,620 pounds of force, 2.5 times harder than white oak. Thermal output reached 32.9 million BTUs per cord, the highest figure of any North American wood. A material this extraordinary does not quietly disappear from a civilization. It has to be pushed out. In 1874, a farmer named Joseph Glidden filed a patent in DeKalb, Illinois, for a new product, modern barbed wire. Within a decade, manufacturers like Washburn and Moen, later absorbed into United States Steel, were marketing wire fencing aggressively to railroads and ranchers. The pitch was simple. Barbed wire was cheaper to install, lighter to transport. One DeKalb correspondent wrote in 1875 that enough material to fence 160 acres could be carried in a common buggy, and 2 men could put it up in 2 days. What followed was not a natural market transition. It was an institutional erasure. State and county governments across the Midwest began passing hedge laws in the 1880s and 1890s, requiring farmers to trim or remove their Osage orange hedge. The justification shifted with the audience: fire hazards, obstacles to road expansion, harbors for vermin. Railroad companies that had initially planted Osage orange for ties and windbreaks reversed course and promoted steel infrastructure. USDA extension publications that had once classified Osage orange as a valuable hedge plant quietly reclassified it as a nuisance species. By the early 1900s, the same institution that had helped spread the tree now recommended its removal. The economic logic was never complicated. The United States fencing market today exceeds $10 billion annually. T-posts, barbed wire, woven wire, vinyl, and composite panels. Every product in that market requires manufacturing, mining, shipping, and replacement every 15 to 30 years. A living Osage orange hedge requires none of those inputs and lasts indefinitely. A dead Osage orange post set in bare ground lasts 50 to 100 years. You cannot build a recurring revenue industry on a material that never needs replacing. Maclura pomifera, Osage orange, hedge apple, bois d'arc. The botanical name is Maclura pomifera. Its native range was extraordinarily small, a patch no wider than 300 miles, spanning parts of eastern Texas, southeastern Oklahoma, and southwestern Arkansas. One of the most restricted distributions of any major tree on the continent. Yet its wood was traded along indigenous networks stretching across the Great Plains. A tree confined to a sliver of riverbank bottomland became, through human desire, one of the most sought-after materials in pre-contact America. The people who understood this best were the ones whose name became permanently attached to the tree, the Osage Nation. The Osage controlled territory across present-day Missouri, Arkansas, Kansas, and Oklahoma, and within that territory lay the groves that every bowyer on the Great Plains needed. Osage orange was the premier bowwood of the central continent. No other native species matched its combination of qualities. The wood is both flexible and dense, capable of bending under draw without taking a permanent set, then snapping back with enough stored energy to send an arrow cleanly through a bison's rib cage. A properly seasoned Osage orange stave, shaped and tillered over weeks of careful work, produced a bow rivaling the English yew longbows that had decided the battles of Agincourt and Crécy, except this wood grew in North America. A single finished Osage orange bow was worth a horse and a blanket in Plains commerce. In a culture where horses represented wealth, mobility, and military power, one bow carved from one tree commanded the price of a living animal. Tribes whose territory lay hundreds of miles from the native range traded extensively to acquire raw staves. The Comanche used Osage orange bows. So did nations from the forests of Ohio to the foothills of the Rockies. The French had given this tree a name. They called it bois d'arc, wood of the bow. American settlers would mangle the pronunciation into something simpler, Bodark. In 1910, the Forest Products Laboratory began testing every commercially important wood species in America to document exactly what each one could do: hardness, strength, flexibility, rot resistance, thermal output. The measurements would fill what became the Wood Handbook, the definitive reference first published in 1935, when researchers placed untreated Osage orange fence posts directly in the ground, the harshest test any building material can face. The results were extraordinary. Soil contact means constant moisture, fungal attack, insect pressure, freeze-thaw cycling. Untreated pine fails this test in 3 to 5 years. White oak, the American standard for hardwood durability, lasts 10 to 15 years. Pressure-treated lumber, wood injected with chemical preservatives under industrial force, is rated for 15 to 20 years of ground contact. The Osage orange posts did not rot. After 25 years, researchers found almost no measurable decay. They left the posts in the ground. After 50 years, still standing. Field observations across the Great Plains have since documented Osage orange corner posts lasting 75, 90, and incredible reports from southwest Iowa over 100 years in bare soil. No treatment, no preservative, no coating, just the wood. The primary reason Osage orange fence posts last so long is their exceptional resistance to decay due to the presence of specific extractives within the wood itself, high concentrations of stilbenes, flavonoids, and other phenolic compounds that are toxic to many decay organisms. The Janka test measures how much force is required to embed a steel ball halfway into a piece of wood. White oak registers approximately 1,360 pounds of force. Hickory, the toughest common American hardwood, reaches 1,820 pounds of force. When the laboratory tested Osage orange, the number came back at 2,620 pounds of force, not incrementally harder, a different category of material entirely. The wood is 2.5 times as hard as white oak. Loggers and sawyers have long reported that Osage orange dulls chainsaw chains faster than any domestic species. Some refuse to cut it without carbide-tipped equipment. When researchers measured the thermal output of every major American firewood species, Osage orange produced approximately 32.9 million BTUs per cord, the highest figure of any North American wood. Red oak, a standard firewood, produces roughly 24 million BTUs per cord. The difference is not marginal. Old-timers across the Midwest warned that Osage orange could crack a cast-iron stove. Its energy density approaches that of anthracite coal. One species, growing wild, requiring no irrigation, no fertilization, no pesticide, producing wood that outlasts treated lumber by a factor of 5, burns hotter than any tree on the continent, and destroys cutting tools designed for timber. In 1847, a Yale-educated professor named Jonathan Baldwin Turner left his teaching post at Illinois College in Jacksonville, Illinois, and turned his attention to a problem that was crippling the settlement of the American prairie. There were no fences. The treeless grasslands offered no timber for split rails. Without fencing, settlers could not contain livestock, protect crops, or establish legal boundaries. Turner had the answer. He had been experimenting with Osage orange since the late 1830s, importing seed from Texas and developing planting techniques. His specifications were simple. A single row of Osage orange trees planted 1 foot apart would, in 3 to 4 years, produce a barrier that was horse-high, bull-strong, and hog-tight. The thorns alone were enough to stop cattle. The interwoven branches created a wall no animal could push through. Turner's promotion ignited what one newspaper called Hedge mania. In the 1860s, Osage orange seed prices soared to $50 a bushel. In a single year, 18,000 bushels of seed were shipped to the Northwest, enough, according to contemporary reports, to plant 100,000 miles of hedgerow. By 1869, an estimated 60,000 miles of Osage orange hedge had been planted across the Midwest and South. Michael Farrow, a researcher at Clemson University who published The Definitive Cultural History of the Tree in 2014, concluded that some consider Osage orange to be as important as the railroad, the steel plow, and the windmill for the settlement of the Midwest. In Osage County, Kansas, named, like the tree, for the nation that first valued it, farmers still cut posts from hedge planted more than a century ago. A good Osage orange line post sells for $9 to $12. A corner post fetches $18 to $20. At Homestead National Historical Park in southeastern Nebraska, the National Park Service maintains and rehabilitates the original Osage orange hedge planted by Daniel Freeman around 1875. It has survived well over a century and is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The people who held on to this knowledge, who kept cutting posts from the same hedge their great-grandparents planted, who kept burning Osage orange in their stoves when the hardware store sold petroleum-based alternatives, were dismissed as relics. The tree they relied on was classified as undesirable. Extension agents told them to clear it. And then the world shifted. Pressure-treated lumber came under scrutiny. CCA-treated wood impregnated with chromated copper arsenate was phased out for residential use in 2004 over arsenic concerns. Meanwhile, the permaculture and agroforestry movements began rediscovering what the old-timers already knew. Mark Shepard, founder of New Forest Farm in Viola, Wisconsin, advocates Osage orange as permanent zero-input fencing infrastructure within silvopasture systems. The tree requires no factory, no mine, no supply chain. If you live anywhere from Texas to the Great Lakes, you have almost certainly stood within sight of an Osage orange tree without knowing what you are looking at. The fruit gives it away. From September through November, those bright yellow-green spheres the size of softballs and covered in brain-like bumps and ridges litter the ground beneath female trees along old fence lines, roadsides, and property boundaries. Pick one up. It is heavier than you expect. If you break it open, a sticky white latex bleeds from the pale, pithy interior. The smell is faintly citrus, pleasant, almost floral. Squirrels will shred them for the seeds. Humans generally will not eat them, though they are not toxic. The tree itself is medium-sized, 30 to 50 feet at maturity, with deeply furrowed orange-brown bark and a spreading crown. The branches carry sharp thorns up to an inch long. If you cut a living branch, the freshly exposed wood is a shockingly vivid yellow-orange, unlike anything else in the American forest. Over time, it darkens to a rich, deep brown. The wood has practical applications beyond fencing that modern homesteaders are rediscovering. Specialty sawmills in the Midwest sell it as Hedge or bois d'arc. Rural listings on marketplace platforms in Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Iowa, and Illinois offer fence posts and firewood. If you see Osage orange firewood for sale, buy it and season it for at least a year. It burns hotter than any wood you have ever used, so use it in stoves rated for high-heat hardwoods and do not overload the firebox. Old-timers are not exaggerating when they say it can warp a grate. For fence posts, cut, debark, and season. Drill pilot holes before driving fasteners because the wood will reject steel nails. Set them directly in the ground with no treatment needed, no preservative, no coating. The wood will outlast you. Beyond posts and firewood, woodworkers prize Osage orange for tool handles, mallets, and specialty items where extreme hardness and durability matter. The wood takes an exceptional polish, and the deep golden brown color is prized for turned bowls and decorative items. A word of caution for those working with the wood: the milky sap can irritate skin. The thorns are serious, so wear heavy gloves and eye protection when handling brush, and the wood will destroy your tools. Use carbide-tipped chains and blades or plan to sharpen constantly. But for those willing to work with it, Osage orange rewards patience with performance no manufactured material can match. Growing Osage orange from seed is straightforward but requires patience. Collect the fruits in fall after they drop. Break them open and extract the seeds, which look like large orange seeds about half an inch long. The seeds require cold stratification to germinate. Mix them with moist sand in a sealed bag and refrigerate for 30 to 60 days. Plant in spring after the stratification period, covering seeds with half an inch of soil. Germination is slow and irregular, often taking several weeks. Seedlings grow vigorously once established. For faster results, root cuttings taken in late winter often succeed. The tree is dioecious, meaning male and female flowers appear on separate trees. If you want the characteristic fruits, you need a female tree. If you want to avoid the fruit litter, plant a male. Young trees should be planted in full sun and will tolerate almost any soil type, including heavy clay, rocky ground, and alkaline conditions that kill most other species. Drought tolerance is exceptional once established. The tree's deep taproot system can access water far below the surface. For hedge planting in the traditional manner, space seedlings 12 to 18 inches apart in a single row. In 3 to 4 years, the intertwined branches and thorns create an impenetrable barrier. Pruning and training during the establishment period shapes the hedge into a dense living wall. Modern permaculture practitioners are integrating Osage orange into silvopasture systems as permanent infrastructure that provides shade, wind protection, and fencing without ongoing material costs. The tree also supports wildlife. The dense, thorny branches provide excellent nesting habitat for birds, and the fruits, while not palatable to humans, are eaten by squirrels and occasionally deer. The comeback of Osage orange is not happening through corporate promotion or government programs. It is happening through individual choices by farmers, homesteaders, and permaculture practitioners who recognize that a tree requiring zero inputs and producing materials that outlast anything from a factory represents genuine resilience. Every Osage orange seedling planted today is a choice against the disposable industrial model and a vote for infrastructure that lasts generations. Like this video, subscribe to Heritage Garden Wisdom, and comment below. Are you planting Osage orange or staying dependent on the $10 billion fencing industry? Frank reads every one.